It's an honor to be here and to share the health and money-saving benefits of fasting. As you probably know, fasting has become a popular topic in regards to health. I mean, you hear of Hugh Jackman of Wolverine fame, Jennifer Aniston, they're all doing fasting. And with that, there comes a lot of misinformation and a lot of myths. So I would like to dispel some of those with of my presentation. So these are the most common fears of fasting that I've encountered when sharing the benefits of what I've achieved. Number one, aren't you starving yourself? Isn't fasting dangerous? Why not just eat less, exercise more? Well, in regards to aren't you starving yourself? I have a simple answer. Okay. What I want you to do is take your right hand, or if you're lefty, take your left hand. And if you're a guy, reach down and grab a big bunch of that belly fat. And if you're a female, go in and grab that certain area around the hips. You know what I mean. That is the reason you are not going to starve. All that fat is stored, which is excess calories from the food that you eat. And as long as you have that fat, you starve. In terms of the second question, isn't fasting dangerous? Well, fasting has been a major part of every major religion in the world. Billions of Christians fast during Lent. Billions of Muslims fast during Ramadan. And that has been true for centuries. However, fasting is dangerous for certain groups of people. For example, pregnant women and women who are breastfeeding should not fast. People who have eating disorders should not fast. And especially those with low body fat. However, I would like to add another category which no one ever talks about, and that is if you are under a lot of stress. The reason for that is fasting by its very nature is stressful on the body. I have seen too many instances in online forums where I see people in stressful situations, for example, grieving for a loved one or getting over heartbreak, or in a high-stress project like I used to be as a software developer, where I worked 70 hours for 6 months to get in a $500,000 project in on time. Under those circumstances, you should not fast. And that addresses that question. However, I should also note that each of us have an individual situation. And I want to point out that I'm not a medical doctor, even though everything in this presentation has been reviewed by Dr. Braden Barnett of USC. I urge you to consult your primary physician before undertaking any change in your eating or exercise patterns. And finally, of course, there is that traditional prescription we all get whenever we gain a little weight, right? Which is eat less and exercise more. Well, I heard that when I met with my primary physician early last year. He had reviewed my latest blood panels. And he said, "You're doing great. You've got your diabetes under control. All you need to do is keep eating less and exercising more." Well, instead of being happy, I was mad, I was angry, I was frustrated. And the reason is that if I had my diabetes under control, then why had I gained 20 pounds in a single year since I started taking insulin injections? If I had my diabetes under control, then why had my blood pressure risen to 191 over 103, meaning I was very dangerous to having cardiac arrest? And finally, if I had my diabetes under control, then why had my chronic disease meaning I was closer to being hooked up to that dreaded dialysis machine. When I began my own research into developing my own treatment protocol, first I decided to take a deeper dive into the eat less, exercise approach to health. And the recent research all seemed to point that eat less, exercise more is not a viable option for long-term weight management and metabolic health. All this research could be epitomized by a single NIH study. In the study that was done in 2016, they took a group of 14 former participants of The Biggest Loser reality show. Now, for the few of you out there who don't know what that show was, they took a group of ordinary Americans who were obese, had them eat healthy and exercise them 6 to 8 hours a day for a period of time. Now, of course, under that strict regimen, they lost weight. They made health gains. However, NIH was interested, well, were they able to keep everything they gained from that show? So it had been 6 years since these people had participated in the show. Again, there were 14. And what they found was shocking. 9 of them had regained their original weight. 4 of them had gotten fatter. And the one lone exception only maintained the weight loss by having bariatric surgery, which essentially is putting a collar around the stomach or stapling the stomach. And the conclusion of that study summarizes the eat less, exercise more, and that is this. There used to be mythology that if you just exercised enough, you could keep your metabolism up, but that clearly wasn't the case. These folks were exercising an enormous amount, and their metabolism was slowing by several hundred calories per day. Kevin D. Hull, the National Institutes of Health in Bethesda, Maryland. So when these people left that strict protocol with The Biggest Loser and went back to their normal lives, they weren't exercising 6 to 8 hours a day. So of course the weight came back. And what was even worse, their metabolic rate, the rate that your body burns calories, had gotten lower. So even if they went back to just eating normally, they gained the weight back. So this obviously wasn't an option. So I started doing research and I found fasting. And looking at all the fasting methodologies, I kind of put together my own custom protocol because, hey, you know, that's what software guys do, right? We create systems. Now, the criteria I had for my methodology, which I call simple and sustainable, is I didn't want to count calories. No expensive meal plans, Jenny Craig or Nutrisystem. No restrictive diets. No paleo, no keto, no vegetarian, no Atkins, no carnivore. You name it, I want nothing to do with it. No gym memberships or expensive home equipment, and especially no time-consuming or strenuous workouts, especially for a guy who was morbidly obese with 2 bad knees. So, what was the results after doing my protocol? 4 months and 6 days later, I had dropped my weight from 278 pounds to 209 pounds. And more importantly, I was able to become medication-free. No more insulin injections. No more taking that oral for diabetes. No more of those 2 hypertension medications. No more single one for gout. And no more high cholesterol medication. Now, as you can imagine, I was pretty excited with these results. So I wanted to spread the word. So I joined an online forum on fasting. And I was there at the beginning, so I was considered the senior member, especially considering my experience. And as I counseled people over and over, I saw this disturbing pattern. A pattern that I'd seen when I began my personal training career with 24-Hour Fitness, which at that time was the 3rd largest gym chain in the United States. And this is the pattern that I started finding in the fasting forum. And it was this. That people, when they became overweight, right? They would eat less and exercise more, so they would join the gym. They'd be very good with their diet. They'd be very good at exercising. But then, bam, stress would happen at work, or bam, stress would happen at home, or that double whammy of stress from both sides, work and home. So when we're stressed, we crave that high caloric, dense food, donuts, M&Ms, Snicker bars, you name it, I ate it back then. And of course, these people didn't have the time to exercise, right, because of work or family obligations. So they gained their original weight back, and then they would end up back in the gym. And I saw the same pattern happening in the fasting. I would help these people achieve their health goals through fasting, and they would come back several months later and say, help me, Mr. Wizard. So being a computer guy, I asked myself, are we solving the problem or a symptom? Because if it was a symptom, that would explain why I kept popping over and over again. I'm sure maybe you know of someone intimately going through this cycle. So I did my research. And what I found is that the true problem is a high body set point. Now you may be asking yourself, what is a high body set point? A body set point is a weight range that is set in your brain that your body thinks is healthy for you. Now, you may not think it's healthy, your doctor may not think it's healthy, but your body does, and that's all that matters. So what does this mean? Well, when we eat too much and go beyond the body set point, our body will gear up the metabolism to burn off those extra calories. On the other side, when we diet and drop below our body set point, our body will drag our body screaming back to that set point. And the typical symptoms of a slowing metabolism are feeling cold, feeling short-tempered, and feeling hungry all of the time. I'm sure those of you who have dieted have experienced one or more of these symptoms. So let's take a look at the situation again with a different perspective. Now that we understand that the problem is a high body set point, now we understand why becoming overweight happens over and over again. So what is the cure? The cure is restoring your metabolic health. So you may be asking, well, what is metabolic health? Well, let me give you this definition. Metabolic health is having ideal levels of blood sugar, triglycerides, high density, low density lipoprotein, blood pressure, and waist circumference without medications. I want to emphasize without medications. Now, I want you to take a few seconds and think, what percentage of your fellow Americans fit this definition? Got that number in your head? Well, the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill was also curious, and they conducted a study. And this is what they found. 12%. Only 1 out of every 6 Americans are metabolic healthy. And as we all know from watching COVID, if you have a metabolic disease, according to the CDC, you are 6 times more likely to be hospitalized and 12 times more likely to die from COVID-19. So let me share with you my own self as a case study to illustrate this. Okay, this is a chart of my weight gain over the years. From the point in the far left, when I graduated high school, you saw it immediately jumped up, and that was from the stress of a university. I went to UCLA. However, you notice, for most of my life, my body set point was stable for long periods of time. But then where you see it took a big jump up, that was 2010, when I suffered a severe health crisis and my metabolic health became severely impacted. So what does this look like? The picture on the left was when I was my most physically fit. I was running 10 miles 3 times a week. And the picture on the right is when you're well acquainted with. This was when I was at my physically worst, which was August of last year. So then I began my protocol on August 9th. And let me share with you what that weight chart changed into. This is a period of just 10 months. Oh, 10 months from the time I started to June of last year. As you can see, my body weight started dropping. But more importantly, I want you to notice the valleys and the peaks. That represents the body set point. And if you notice, over a period of time, the valleys got lower and lower and lower. And that's how I'm addressing lowering that body set point to what I consider, not my body, until I can convince it through fasting that it's healthy. Now, you may be asking yourself, well, this all sounds great, but that looks pretty intimidating. I'm just a poor beginner. What can I do to get started? So I put this little package together, all right? 3 simple steps that you can do tomorrow. And those are, let's see, here we go. First steps to better metabolic health. Not a great title, but it works, right? And the first step is choose a fasting schedule that suits your lifestyle. Remember, I'm all about simple and sustainable here. So I started with a daily time-restricted eating schedule of 16-8. What that means is 16 hours of fasting in an 8-hour window. Now, you may be saying, well, that sounds pretty scary. Well, you have done this several times in your life and may not realize it. For example, let's say you finished eating the night before at 8, and then as you sit down to eat breakfast at 8 a.m. the next day, suddenly work calls and you got to rush in, or your child gets sick and you got to rush them to the hospital, and you miss eating, and the first chance you get is not until noon, which is 16 hours. So that is how I started. Now, the second step is choose a daily aerobic exercise that is sustainable for you. Examples are swimming and cycling in addition to walking. Now, here's the really cool thing. Because you're exercising for metabolic health and not to burn calories, all I did was a 1-mile walk. That's it. I did that during that 4 months and 6 days, and that was all the exercise I needed to cure all my metabolic diseases. And step 3, make sure you have a health professional to supervise and you feel comfortable. I want to emphasize, feel comfortable consulting with on a regular basis. My primary physician was skeptical, and that's not surprising. According to the New England Journal of Health, in a December article of last year reviewing the latest on the research of fasting, they said one of the obstacles to fasting becoming more prevalent in the United States is most of your primary physicians are not educated in its benefits. So, of course, they're going to be professional. They're going to be skeptical. Remember, most of your doctors are paid to see patients. They're not paid to keep up on the latest research. So keep that in mind. For myself, as mentioned before, I found a substitute, Dr. Braden, over at USC. And I urge you, if you're looking to reach out to them, because they're aware of the benefits and they're eager to help those in need. So let's review. Step 1, choose a fasting schedule for you. I want to emphasize if that 16-8 now today, just 11. 13 hours of fasting, 11-hour eating schedule. Step 2, choose a daily aerobic exercise. Again, walking, cycling, or swimming, anything that uses the largest muscles in your body. And 3, have a health professional supervise you, one you're comfortable with and you feel confident in. I also recommend, as a primer, reading The Obesity Code by Dr. Jason Fung. That's how I started educating myself about fasting. I want to emphasize, you can do this tomorrow. Don't delay. Take these 3 steps. And I hope to hear of your success story in the near future. Madam Toastmaster.
Well done, Al. Thank you very much. Simple, sustainable protocol